If we could start today's meeting, please.
Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, November 4th, 2015 at 9 a.m. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
This morning, as always, we ask that we remember those in our community that are less fortunate than we are any and every way, and remember those that have lost loved ones since we've been in these chambers. Also, we ask that you remember that we all remember and keep in our prayers and thoughts Melanie Johnson, who's a part of our economic development staff, who is fighting, even in this very moment, fighting for her strength in life. And so let's keep her and her family in prayer. She's a great asset to the community, and period, but also to the staff here in the city. And we also ask that our God and Creator give us the wisdom and the right information to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the City Council meeting of Wednesday, October 21st, 2015, and bills for payment on November 6th and 13th, 2015. Mrs. Rancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan.
Okay. Are there any requests for repository sales today? There is. If you'd like to come up to the microphone and give us your name, address, and describe the request.
Yes, my name is Stephen Lopez, representing my father, Juan B. Lopez, and to try to buy the land on 2421 Parade Street. For one of the reasons is over 8 years he's been taking care of the land, cleaning it, lawnmowing it, snow blowing it. The reason he wants it is because he has many grandchildren, and so he feels he needs a bigger land for them to be able to play in. He will also like to fence it up and still care for the land.
Okay. Does council have any questions?
Mr. Lopez, is this next door to your father's house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And he's already taken care of it anyway, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Council have any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you. I think it's pretty straightforward. We will not be voting on that this evening, but we thank you for this morning. It's a long day already. So we will be in contact with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other repository sales here today? I don't have any information on it, but I wanted to check. Any other repository sales? Seeing none, we will now have citizens be heard, and there are two citizens who had signed up to speak today. Mr. Randy Barnes will be first on the list.
Morning, Council President, administration, guests. My name is Randy Barnes, 109 Walton Point. It's an exciting time of year because it's probably the most important time of the year, right after the election, that the council gets to decide on how and how much money is spent for the next year. Well, we always like to think it's the mayor's budget, but it is the mayor's budget he submits, but it's actually council's budget because they decide whether to approve that budget, cut that budget, add to that budget, move funds around. And the decisions council makes and also the boards that they nominate and put on boards has a lot to do with what the city does. And one of the things council did a year and a half ago was decide to pay a retiree $24,000 over 2 years to archive some records. And we learned from a couple months ago, archiving these records means calling up Perillo Enterprises on Parade Street and asking them to come and get the microfilm. So for a year and a half of supervising records, that meant we had to someone had to make a phone call. Mr. Clem, the retired city clerk, made the phone call and said, Perillo, come and get the microfilm, archive these records. Because in the 47 years that Mr. Clem worked in the city hall here, he did find time to get the records archived from 1980 on. So for 30-some years, the records were archived, and he found time to do that while he was taking office. But once he retired and collected a $68,000 a year pension, council thought that they needed him around a little bit longer because they needed these records archived, because someone had to call Perillo, and he was the likely guy to do it for $24,000. But they also needed him to hold their hand. I don't know if you see it downtown. There's a lot of daycare centers, and they all hold hands. Well, council thought that they needed their hand held because the person they selected to take Mr. Clem's job wasn't qualified, they felt. They felt that they needed to pay him $1,000 a month. And again, that's your tax dollars. Remember, you pay property tax. If you work in the city, you pay income tax. You pay tax to the state, you pay tax to the federal government, which some of it comes back. But this is really about your money. This is really about $24,000 of taxpayer money given to a retiree so he could hold hands with 7 council people, because 4 of these council people felt, and I shouldn't say 7, I should say 4, and let me read from the record. Those 4 council people that voted for this were Councilman Winarski, Witherspoon, Jones, and Rankunko. So it's not fair to say 7 people needed their hands held. It's really only 4 council people, and those 4 council people, of course, were Witherspoon, Winarski, Kunko, and Jones. They felt they needed their hand held, and the way to get their hand held and get through the next 2 years of training the incoming clerk was to pay Mr. Clem $1,000 a month for 24 months. And also, for that $24,000, you got a phone call to Perillo Enterprise to say, come and pick up the microfilm. So when we talk about the budget, we talk about spending, these 7 people that are standing in front of me, and most of them are ignoring me because they don't like to hear about what they've done. They don't want to face what they've done. They don't want to face their votes. So they ignore me when I'm talking. And they pretend to scribble notes and do all kinds of funny things. But that's okay. It's not important that they hear. They already know what they did and what they did wrong. They gave away $24,000 of your money to a man that collected a $68,000 pension so he could come down and hold their hand for those 4 people. So it doesn't matter. They know what they did, and they know it's wrong. But this is about friends and family. This is about when you get to a position in city council, you figure out, well, I can't do a whole lot to change the direction of the world, but I can sure help my friends and family. If I can get a friend or family a contract or steer them in the right direction, get them a job or get them some extra money, then that's a good thing, I guess, in some city council people's minds. In my mind, I think it's a terrible thing, because we watch the city deteriorate. We've watched this council appoint zoning hearing board members who say, hey, motorcycle club, give them a shot. Well, this motorcycle club took more than one shot, didn't they? They took a bunch of shots the other night. But those people that make those decisions, they are appointed by city council that decide things like, give them a shot. Yeah, we turned them down once, but 4 years later, give them a shot. Well, now you got another motorcycle club 3 blocks down the street. How can you deny them a variance? But these are the decisions. These are the little decisions that city council makes. Throwing away $24,000 money to hold hands. Throwing away having boards that they appoint give variances for different things that shouldn't belong in neighborhoods. You understand how a city goes down the tubes? It goes down the tubes one decision at a time. It's unfortunate that we're watching it before our own eyes. Thank you.
Next person who signed up was Amy Comparatori.
Good morning, Council. Over the years, I've heard comments here at Council by citizens about the diversity of our Erie Police Department. I decided to find out the truth. On October 22nd, 2015, I went to our Erie Police Department. There, the Chief's Executive Assistant, Donna, gave me the statistics on our police department's diversity. You have the charts in front of you. It was in your boxes. The figures she gave me 174 officers, 158 white male, which makes up 90.8% of the police force, 9 white females, which are 5.17% of our force, for a total of 167 white officers total, which makes almost 96% of the force at 95.97%. That's 167 officers out of 174 that are white. There are only 4 black males, which make up 2.29% of our force. Black females were not reported to me, so they are at 0, which is a total of 4 black officers, and that is out of 174 officers. 2 Hispanic males, which come in at 1.14%. No Hispanic females reported, so 2 out of 174 are Hispanic. And then we have one of the more interesting statistics, 1 American Indian male, which technically comes in at 0% because it's 0.0057. It's not even enough to make a full 1%. And the gender diversity, as you see, are the 9 females against 165 males. And the gender ratio is 1 to 19. I also had a right to know law request in, and I'd like to present this into evidence so that you may see it. That was asking for the numbers of police cadet diversity. It's all right. I just got that yesterday evening, so I did not have an opportunity to make copies for you. Is it that these groups are not applying? Well, actually, I found out yesterday through talking to a few people that is not the case. I have a dear friend who is an e-bus driver. He has passed the test twice. He will be coming, if his schedule permits, the next time we meet at 7:30, so you may hear his voice. Is it that they are not making the cut going from cadet to officer, or is it that they are just not being hired? Why ought we have diversity on the police force? Not just because of equal rights or equal representation. We ought to have diversity because of the cultural differences toward authority in our community. A black man is more likely to listen and respect a black officer than a white officer. If the civilian respects the officer, the civilian is more likely to respect the officer's authority. This goes for any person of color, Hispanic, Indian, Asian. If you have more cultural diversity in your community, people are more likely to respect you as being the same and not of a higher or lesser authority figure. Erie has a huge African American and Hispanic community. We ought to make more efforts to hire qualified applicants of color. More representation of officers within these communities would give our younger people more positive examples to look up to. It would also help send a message to domestic violence offenders, because when we see women of authority, like female police officers, able to take a stand for themselves and others who they are sworn to serve, it sends a message to the community that females have power to change things in our community too. It has been said at the podium by many different citizens over the years that we don't have enough police officers on the force. It is true. These numbers ought to be doubled or tripled as to the total number of officers. And the numbers for the diversified groups are just pathetic. It is difficult to take care of shootings, rapes, murders that happen in and around the city and keep an eye on our main strip, State Street, as well. State Street gets a quick look on the way in and way out, but we need more cops on the beat all year long on State Street, too. A better police presence on State Street would be a better deterrent to those acting disorderly and criminally on State Street herself. I must also give kudos to the officers keeping an eye on McDonald's at 5th and State. Another incident on Sunday, October 25th, 2015, occurred in which 3 cop cars were required. I was across the street at Richford Arms. It is scary to see what our city is becoming. Please give the police department the resources they need in order to keep our city safe. Someone once said the mayor proposes and council disposes. The next time you consider funding a recreational or beautifying project, please ask yourselves, on behalf of the community that you have pledged to serve, could these funds be better appropriated? When you find among
Amy,
yourselves asking...
Maybe your
that-
time is up. Are you wrapping up?
Yes, I am,
Okay.
sir. Sorry about that. When you find among yourselves asking that question, I would like you to reconsider the appropriation to the police department for more officers, especially more officers of color and female officers. In regards to the watch, I have met with Tecumseh Brown Eagle and Sue Moyer. Dave Dieter canceled our meeting due to a schedule mix-up on his end. And with that, I thank you, council, and you can read about the rest regarding State Street Neighborhood Watch. Thank you.
Thank you. We will continue with citizens to be heard, but I do want to say we'll probably just be able to fit one more speaker in because we have a public hearing at 9:30. So we can take one more citizen to be heard, and then we can continue after the public hearing with any other person is here to speak today. So we could have one more person speak. Speak.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
Young man.
I'm McDonald. My property is 19th and Reed. You know, she's speaking about the police officers. If you would utilize what you got and train them better than they're being trained, I think their first obligation is to respect. Then you could demand respect. You can't respect nobody talking to you any kind of way. You can't talk to me any kind of way. I'm going to respect you, and you're going to respect me. Respect demands respect. I don't think you're training your policemen right. I don't know who's doing the training, but they're not trained to respect. We're the taxpayers. We're paying their salary. You're getting some of the tax money. Some of you are not worth what you're getting, and you're not getting that much. You know, I worked 65 years. And I don't know, I look back sometime and I think it was a waste. I'd have been better off on welfare. That park out there, that was a waste of money. That park up there, that was a waste of money. You hardly see anybody up there. All you see is I don't see all that money that went into that park. Where did the money go? I think it was $11 million. Don't make sense. It's a waste. You know, you're supposed to be able to use your own mind and not let somebody else get in your mind and tell you what to do and when to do. When you were voted for, you said you're going to help take the city forward. City ain't going nowhere. Look at them trolleys you bought here years ago. You ain't made a dime on them trolleys. You ain't made no money on them trolleys. That big old bus station you're building up there, I don't know what you're building it for. You got your hands on some funds and you decide to spend them. I don't know. What have you done for the citizens of this town? Put them in a bind. Put our kids in a bind. I just don't know. You know, if I couldn't get into something and try to better it, I wouldn't bother with it. I couldn't let nobody else be telling me, do this, do that, do that, do that. Some of you that's your nature, to let other people run your lives. The law is surrounds the taxpayers. What they say, that's what it said. You got to do this, you got to do that. That's the wrong way to go. You all might not understand what I'm trying to say, but I'm saying this. You're not doing your job. Anything Joe wants, y'all jump over each other to get there to do it. Joe did not vote for you. The citizens, the taxpayers voted for you. All of those things you done put down there on the bayfront, that ain't nothing but a chain around our necks. Then you don't put no tax on it. That don't make no sense to me. Non-taxable. How long is that supposed to go on? Non-taxable. Forever? Taxes keep going up. Everything keep going up. Like that garbage and sewage thing. Instead of going out there collecting that money, or trying to collect it, and there's a way to collect it, y'all supposed to be educated people. All of you up there supposed to have a little education. Some of you didn't get enough, and some of you think you got too much. You know, it's good to have education, but wisdom ain't a bad thing either. A little wisdom go along with that education. Y'all got to do a better job. You're not doing it. You're not doing it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That will conclude citizens be heard for now. We're going to have the public hearing right now. We will continue after public hearing for any other citizen that needs to speak today. We're going to start with people who are here to speak in favor of this request, and then we will have people speaking against the request. If you want to come to the microphone. No, I'm sorry.
So they can set up or wait.
And give us a second. We'll set up here.
That's fine.
Is it East Ave or is it the one Brand is that runs right into? Okay.
Oh, ready? Okay. Okay. If you want to proceed.
Good morning, Council. My name is Brian Weber. I'm with Weber Murphy Fox Architects, and we're here to, on behalf of Scott Enterprises, to present to you this project for additional 13 spaces as an extension of the existing parking lot in front of the public library down at the Bayfront along Front Street. The 13 spaces came from an agreement between the county and Scott Enterprises to accommodate the new office spaces that are being built for Camtech at the public library. The spaces are built on Scott Enterprises property, and we have, and they will be then giving those spaces to the county in exchange for the land as part of that agreement. Other than that, this parking lot has been, we reviewed this parking lot with the design committee and also with the planning committee, with zoning and with engineering. It's a pretty straightforward project, 13 parking spaces. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any detailed questions you might have about the plans. I believe we provided 11 by 17 renderings for all of you to see the plans, so I think that's
Okay.
the report.
Does any council member have any question on this issue? I believe everybody has their drawings of this. Any questions from council? Okay. Well, I guess they are good drawings. They explain what was going on there. Thank you. Okay. Is anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? If you want to take a look at that. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? One final chance. Anyone here to speak in favor of this request? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak against this request?
Council Ed Kissel, 2815 Sigsbee. I really don't want to speak against it in the sense, I want to know the liability if that tower, if some concrete falls off the tower. I believe, and I haven't seen the photographs, so I'm a little bit nil on that. If that parking lot is going to be around the smokestack that's down in that area, and how, the other question I have, the stormwater management of that site is going to be taken care of per city zoning. I don't know if Brian can answer that question.
Okay. Brian, would you like to come up and answer these? Ms. Kissel, are those your only two questions?
Yes, the liability,
The liability,
the drainage,
the drainage?
and since it's, I'll leave the other one out. That's, yes. Those.
Okay. Dean, please come up and...
Hello, I'm Mike Sanford with Sanford Surveying and Engineering, and we submitted the civil side of the plans to the city for review. For stormwater management, there are some existing asphalt areas on the property, on the tax parcel, that will be removed to offset this increase. So we will, in effect, zero out on any new impervious area. We've given those calculations to the engineering department. One of the design review comments was to also implement a water quality BMP, and that's what we did is we installed what they call a snout. It goes in the catch basin and it removes floatables and oils from getting into the lake. So we've done that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, I'm not an attorney. As an architect, I can only speak generally about the liabilities. The property is owned by Scott Enterprises, and so anything with that chimney would be their property, their concern, their liability. As far as design went, we did remove any public walkways underneath or around the chimney or the smokestack itself. And we kept the edges of the parking lots a minimum of 15 feet away from the base of that current smokestack. From what we've seen, the smokestack has been kept in pretty good shape, clean. Clean. We haven't seen any debris falling from that or any signs of there being an issue. But again, this is all the property of Scott Enterprises.
Okay. Any other questions while they're at the microphone? Council? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak against? And one last chance, anyone else here to speak against this issue? Okay, we want to, does the solicitor have any opinion of this issue? Mr. Crowley, is there any opinion in this matter? There's any discussion from your part, or everything's fine from your end?
No, I think you've followed the zoning rules and you're compliant. And as I understand it, Mr. Scott is compliant. He has to get any building permits, so drainage and so on would be considered in that issue. So far as what I've heard, what I've seen so far, that he's done what he needs to do to secure whatever decision you, in your judgment, you want to render.
Yeah, is there anyone else that would like to speak on this issue? I think there's been some questions. I'm sorry. Yeah. And then is there someone from the Planning Commission to speak about this issue? Mr. Poos?
Morning, President, esteemed members of council. My name is Matthew Puz, Erie City Zoning Officer. I'm here to read the recommendation from the Erie City Planning Commission. The City of Erie Planning Commission at the regular meeting on October 20th, 2015 reviewed the proposal by Weber Murphy Fox, Inc. and Sanford Surveying PC to construct a parking lot west of an existing parking lot on Front Street, index number 1046-136. The property is located in the WC Waterfront Commercial District. Since all changes in use are conditional uses in this district, the proposal needs to be presented to the governing body for their approval. After reviewing the proposal, the Planning Commission unanimously recommends that Council approve the parking lot. The Commission believes that the parking lot should be granted a building permit on the grounds that, 1, all of the Design Review Committee's concerns were addressed, and 2, this is an appropriate use for this property. The City of Erie Design Review Committee at the regular meeting on October 7, 2015 voted 2-0 with 2 abstentions to approve the parking lot design with the condition that the interior island be enlarged to provide for trees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that will conclude the public hearing. We will be voting on this with the rest of the meeting, or ordinances coming up, and we will now continue with any other citizens to be heard. Are there any other citizens to be heard this morning?
Good morning. I'm just here more or less to talk about the last council meeting I came to.
If you could have your name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Betty Irwin, 2634 Pearl Street. I came to council looking for help a few years ago because I didn't know where else to turn. I was very nervous, as I am now, and I believe something I said was taken the wrong way. When I first spoke to your code officer, John Redinger, he told me if he wrote me up my neighbor, which I was complaining about, he'd have to write up the entire block. I knew that wasn't true. At council, I said I wasn't concerned with the other neighbors. Mr. Horton asked me to repeat that. What I meant was I had no problems with any of my other neighbors. Mr. Redinger came out that day, wrote up everybody for petty things, then told Mr. Jackson to watch the meeting to see who turned everybody in, which was a lie. I gave you one address only. The day after the meeting aired, Mr. Jackson came down to my home, took my property stake, and threatened me. The next evening, him and his friends pulled up in a truck, yelling obscenities and telling me to get my 39 Chevy off his effing property. It was parked in my driveway. I'm sorry. I didn't go outside. I didn't acknowledge him at all. The next day, I discovered a hole in my bay window and indents in my car from a BB gun. I now have a van tight to the trees on the west side of my property, which hasn't moved in over a year, so I can't trim the branches out of the electrical wires for fear of hitting the van. Mr. Jackson then brought up an old truck full of junk, old tires, and parked it within an inch of the property line on the east side. As he was doing that, he hit my property stake, which hit me. The tires hold water, which is a breeding ground for mosquitoes and West Nile virus. Code for the city says no storage vehicle is to be parked within 5 foot of the property line. I'd like to know how many of you would like to live with this junk on your property. And for the record, Mr. Jackson came to council and said I have harassed him for 12 years. If I have spoken 50 words to this man in 12 years, we're doing good. And none of the words that I spoke to him were derogative. I also see why people are moving out of the city. I have owned my home for 39 years, and I'll be damned if I'll be pushed out by these guys. And I also see why people take matters into their own hands, because you can't get anywhere going to the officials. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, what was your address again, ma'am?
2634 Pearl Street.
26. Thank you.
Our liaison on the zoning, Mr. Witherspoon, I don't know if he could maybe look into the issue or and just see if there's anything that anything we can do, or just maybe know more about it.
Is that Pearl Street?
Pearl.
Pearl.
Pearl. Thank you. Yes, are there any other citizens to be heard?
And my name is Roger Irwin. I'm Betty's husband. And you go down to Jackson's house down the street there, and I can show you, he's got 6 unexpected vehicles down there. Did that guy, that Redinger, come in my neighborhood and find everybody or with binders on? Because he's got 6 of them on. I got pictures to prove it. And here's a tape with my wife come down here, and he came down here, and you look at this, and you can see where he hit my wife with that stake when he parked that truck. And he brought a tape in here saying, well, I just parked my truck because it's on his tape. And you can look and see, even Ms. Kuntz saw that, right? Am I right? And you go there now, and you come by my house, and I was up at the mayor's office. Let's see, when was I there? I was there the 20th. The 21st, they sent it right down to code enforcement, which I told that lady not to. She sent a guy out to my house. He drove around the block. I watched him drive because I got cameras. I watched him drive just like Redinger did. And all he did, and he reports back in. Zimmerman called me and says, well, Mr. Irwin, there's nothing wrong out there. Everything's fine. Well, you come look, there's 4 foot of weeds around that guy's truck, tires and everything else, right tight to my property. And you can even look at this picture. There's a guy, it says parking lot or driveway. How's that a parking lot or driveway when there's a wire going across, a guide wire? He's parked right underneath it. How's he going to get out of there? That's not a driveway. and he's got 6 unexpected vehicles down the street. I don't get it. And you can ask her, when she come out there was 2, it says in there one unexpected vehicle. There was 2 there, and they said he was fine. Now, how is that? I mean, to me, what are they? Is he Mr. Resta's buddy or what? Because he didn't do nothing to him. And he said that we were in trouble. I've been to court with Mr. Resta and his family. And Ms. Kay Poole said, before anything's done with that property, get it surveyed. Well, you come and look at the fence there, and it must be 4 foot on the other side of somebody else's property, and it's up this high, and you go and look, and he didn't cover down them tires. And you can see tires and everything, and that water must get 3 or 4 inches deep back there. And like my wife said, that breeds mosquitoes. And I don't think it's fair that I should have to eat this, or my wife have to eat this too, or that man. And to me, I was tempted to grab that guy and snatch him out of his car. Would you do that if somebody hit your wife with a pole on purpose? I mean, how would you feel? I mean, it was hard for me to walk away from that. I've got that tape with some pictures here. If you want to see them, fine. If not, that's fine too.
Yes.
Mr. President, my timeline is escaping me, but like a year and a half ago, I think, Mr. Zimmerman and I walked the property with the Irwins, and we looked at the issues in the neighborhood, and
There were 5 unexpected deals.
it appears as if there's been no follow-up from Mr. Zimmerman's office, at least not enforcing those issues that we discovered when we walked around the property. To follow up again.
Driveway with that guide wire right there. And this is all the stuff that, and he even had the nerve to come in my backyard after he couldn't find my truck, because you can ask her, he told me if I put it behind the fence and covered up, that I would be fine. He come down to my house and walked with me in my backyard. He went over to look at Mr. Russ's stuff because he couldn't find my truck. Because you look on that tape there, you can see Mr. Redinger driving around in that little white Jeep. He doesn't come around, slowed by my drive looking for that truck. He couldn't find it. And when he came out of my backyard, he looks over and he says, "You better watch." He said, "Neighbors will get you for what's behind your fence." Well, how come I can't get him for all that junk and motorcycles? And there's even a gas tank laying back there on the ground. To tell me that's sanitary enough that would get in the water. You can see all the junk he's got back there. And he's even got motorcycles parked beside his house. And then he's got a car outside his fence, and there's a motorcycle parked beside that. And he works on motorcycles and on his property there. And they say, well, you know, not to spray paint because of the fumes. Well, what about the fumes when he works on them motorcycles there and it comes in my house and I have to breathe it? Me and my wife have to breathe it. I'm 62 years old. Why should I have to breathe that? I got a heart problem. My wife got that OCPD or whatever you want to call it. She can't breathe right, and now we got to put up with that. The guy thinks he owns the neighborhood since wherever, I guess. I don't know. And you come around, and me and my wife hardly ever come out of our house, except for to mow the grass or something like that. And then I got to put up with this here, and I don't think it's right for him to tell me that he's got to turn the whole neighborhood in. That's baloney. I never heard that before. I hope my nephew gets better than what I did out of this system.
Well, thank you, sir, for coming in. Thank you both for coming in. We'll definitely look at this, and we appreciate...
I'll send the code enforcement out there to my house, because to me that's a waste.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We'll now continue for citizens to be heard. Are there any other citizens to be heard this morning? Are there any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we will now continue with the rest of the meeting.
Ordinances for final passage. Council file number 15933, official ordinance number 31-2015. An ordinance appropriating the sum of $89,011.13 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue, $80,643.28 received earnings from the Enterprise Zone Revolving Loan Fund, and $8,367.85 program income. These funds are to be allocated into the Enterprise Zone program accounts. By Mr. Jones and seconded by Mrs. Haran-Kunso, the Council file Ordinance Bill number 15933, and now known as Official File Ordinance number 31 of 2015, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Haran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council passed Official File Ordinance number 31, 2015, finally by yea 7, nay 0. Council file number 15934, official ordinance number 32, 2015, an ordinance amending ordinance number 26, 1958, the traffic code of the City of Erie by the installation of stop signs at 4 intersections. by Mr. Mursky and seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, that council file ordinance bill number 15934, and now known as official file ordinance number 32, 2015, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Frankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council passed official file ordinance number 32, 2015, finally by yea 7, nay 0. Council file 15935, official ordinance number 33, 2015, an ordinance, the transfer and conveyance by the Erie Western Pennsylvania Port Authority to Lakefront Realty, LLC, portions of outshore water lots located in and adjacent to the East Canal Basin, being the same parcel as shown on the plan entitled Subdivision of Land for Lakefront Realty, LLC, and Erie Western Pennsylvania Port Authority, prepared by Henry T. Welke and Associates, LLC, attached here. By Mr. Winarski and seconded by Mrs. Frankunso, the council file ordinance bill number 15935, and now known as official file ordinance number 33, 2015, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Frankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council passed official file ordinance number 33, 2015, finally by yea 7, nay 0. New business.
Mr. President,
Yes,
I'd like to move the balance of the agenda.
do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Mursky, second. Do we have any separations? Seeing none, we would vote on the moving the balance.
Moving the balance of the agenda, Mrs. Frankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. That'll take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Thank you. If we could start with Mr. Kwiatkowski.
Being that I was out of town, I have no report at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Winarski.
Even though I was in town, I have no report this morning.
Must be a slow week.
Slow week.
Mr. Jones, I'm sure you have a report.
Let's see. Should I follow suit? Right? Just that we will be having a brief, relatively brief, depending on the content or conversation, finance meeting after this session today. Mr. Kwiatkowski has some guests coming to make us a presentation or to give us some information, and with the expectation of receiving our budget for next year, budget proposal from the mayor's office in the next couple of weeks. Mr. Lichtenwalder will be there to entertain any of our questions around anything major, anything unusual or unexpected coming through that budget. So that's the extent of my report today.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mrs. Kunsa?
My turn? Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple items to report. There's a couple of streetlight outages that I want to talk to Leanne Parmenter on. I just was talking to Councilman Mursky on East Ave and Atkins Street, right by East High School, and there seems to be something going on at Highview and Grandview. The light is gone. Not just out, it's gone. Are they gonna? Okay, good. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mursky. The Water Reserve Investment Committee will be meeting November the 10th regarding the investment policy statement and renewing that, updating our investment policy statement for the future of the water reserve funds to continue to make money to reinvest for capital improvements of the city. Also, I've been speaking with Ms. Comparatori over the State Street Neighborhood Watch. She's continuing to work on her research to develop a neighborhood watch for the folks that live here on State Street, and she's doing a lot of research on that. One of the things that has come up is a location for her meetings, so I wanted to ask Ms. Beck if you could follow up on that. She was hoping to be able to hold her meetings, neighborhood watch meetings, here in Chambers, being that it'd be for State Street residents to attend those monthly meetings, and certainly that seems to be a reasonable request to hold public meetings at City Hall. So if you could just let us know if that would be feasible for her. They haven't locked in any kind of date yet, as this is just being started up. So I think that if you could follow up on me, we'd really appreciate that. And I know police always attend neighborhood watch meetings. Council members also attend neighborhood watch meetings, so we would be here in attendance as well. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Kunzel. Mr. Mursky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few things to report. November 1st started even-odd parking regulations in the city of Erie, so while you're parking in your neighborhoods, please be aware that the parking regulations are now in effect for our winter parking regulations, even-odd. I attended the Polonaise Ball. It was the 51st Polonaise Ball, along with Councilman Kwiatkowski. We thank the East Side Federation for hosting the Polonaise Ball, but more importantly, for hosting scholarships for young people of Polish and Slavic descent. They give thousands of dollars every year in scholarships for young people in our community, and we thank them for that. And just two other things to report. I attended some of the Global Summit events for the Jefferson Education Society, including Governor Wolf's talk, and also one that I wasn't able to make because I had to chaperone the East High homecoming was the integrating technology and fiber Wi-Fi broadband into communities. But I did get to speak with Joel Duderman from VelocityNet about his efforts to bring fiber internet to Erie, and he's working on that right now, and I'm very excited. We need to do everything we can to bring Erie into the 21st century and bring that high-speed internet, because with that comes the jobs of the 21st century, or the infrastructure's in place that we can create the jobs that are going to be needed for the 21st century. Other cities are doing it, and I'm glad that private industry is stepping up to do that here in town. And finally, just to my colleagues on council, Mr. Wells from the Convention Center Authority, again, extended an invitation to us for a tour of the hotel under construction. So if you want to, in the back room, give me dates that you would be interested, be at after 3 o'clock, after they're done with the construction day. He's willing to give us tours, and of course, administration's always invited as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mursky. Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Amy for an outstanding report and the research you did on that. I find it very interesting, intriguing, and I'm sure our liaison, Councilman Kwiatkowski, will call a meeting, as he usually do, with the chief, and we'll bring that up and we'll take that in consideration. But you did an outstanding job. Also, I received a action plan for 2016 from the Erie Housing Authority, Mr. Haran and his staff, who usually do an outstanding job. I will leave this here at City Hall, and any citizen who would like to review it, they can. You cannot check it out. You can review it here in the clerk's office. I scanned through it this morning, and again, they did an outstanding job, and their action plan meets many of the needs that we need to see in the city, and especially those living in public housing. That's it, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Ms. Sienkiewicz, any report today?
I do have some information for council. There'll be an investment committee meeting November 9th at 3 o'clock, and our consultant will be in to review our quarter for the aggregate funds. And then November 10th at 9:30, the aggregate board will meet. And if the investment committee has anything to bring to the board, then they'll review it at that time to see if there's any changes that need to be made. So at our next council meeting, I'll have some more information and some information on how our funds did for the quarter. So that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Beck, report from administration.
Just to follow up on Mr. Irwin's comments about the properties on Pearl Street, I did get an email from our office. He was in the spring. Andy Zimmerman did go out, and there were about 5 properties in the area that were in violation. I'm not sure where we stand now. But it was something that we did look into, and I'll follow up to see where we are. Was fortunate enough to hear Governor Wolf speak on Sunday evening. I'm thankful that the Jefferson Educational Society was able to bring him in for the Global Summit. His comments were very on point about education and how it's so important to the fabric of the community, and how a good education, everyone deserves a good education, and when we're not doing the right thing for our kids, we see the breakdown throughout the region. So just very thankful to have heard those words, and congratulations to all the candidates. Thanks.
Thank you. A couple items. I also attended the Jefferson Global Summit with Governor Wolf. Very good presentation. A lot of tough questions were asked of him, and I think he had some thoughtful answers. And hopefully, we're going to be continuing to go forward and progress as he takes all these things and makes them happen. A lot of interesting discussion on economic development, and of course, the budget impasse is of course something at the top of the list. So hopefully, that'll continue to move forward. But again, also thank you to the Jefferson Education Society. They're doing an incredible job of bringing in speakers that are really talking about very pertinent subjects that we can all benefit from. This morning, I did want to report that we had in our caucus session, we had representatives from Develop Erie in to talk about their latest projects and a lot of the ongoing discussion on selling properties and moving some economic development issues forward. So that'll continue to hopefully work out to everyone's benefit. And we're definitely looking forward in the city to seeing some of the properties move forward that they spoke of. We have some study sessions coming up here on November 12th. We're meeting with the to get a status on the Buffalo Road interchange and also McBride Viaduct engineering. At the same time, the Erie Parking Authority, some discussion on the improvements and some of the issues there. And lastly, the Veterans Day Parade is this Saturday at 26th and State. It starts and goes at Jefferson School. It's always a well-attended event, so hopefully if you could come and support all our veterans on that day, and it starts at 10. So with that said, that would end our meeting today. Thank you so much.
City Council adjourn at 10 o'clock a.m. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Petrowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon.